This is Tom Foxley, and on today's show I am joined by Mr. Ryan Hurst to talk all things movement and, as I want to do, talk about philosophy of movement, philosophy of training, and some awesome habits and strategies and everything you guys need to start moving better, start feeling better, and just be a better human being. This is one of my favourites. I keep on saying that at the moment, but the quality of guests is just awesome, and this was another episode that was live streamed in my Facebook group, Alpha Athletes Page 2.0, where we have a new edition of Free Shit Saturday where I twist the arm of one of the guests to give us something sweet. And also we have the Wednesday WOD, a chance for you guys to get competitive against each other and see who is the best athlete and just have a bit of fun, to be honest. So that is something we all compete in, and I'll see you soon in the Alpha Athletes Page 2.0, and here is Ryan. So Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Basically, I want to. Well, God, that was a garbled start to an intro. Why don't you start off with telling us whereabouts in the world you are right now?
Oh, absolutely. I'm originally from the United States. Kansas. Yeah, you can laugh. Originally from Kansas when I was about, 18, 19 years old, left, and ended up going to college, into uni in Japan.
Okay.
And so I'm still in Japan, decided to stay, and I live in Osaka, Japan. So I've been in Osaka now for about 21 years.
Okay. What prompted the move originally?
So originally it was martial art. And so I did gymnastics pretty much my entire life from like age 6 on up to 18, all throughout high school, secondary school, everything, And I had an injury on my knee. And even before that, though, I was getting into the martial arts. And in particular, I wanted to learn more about Bushido, the concept of the warrior spirit. I know it sounds silly, but that's what I wanted to do. And my martial arts instructor actually had spent over 20 years in Japan, moved back to Kansas, and he said, if you really want to learn more about Bushido and that spirit, then the best way to do it is to learn the language and then actually experience it in Japan. And I'm not the kind of guy to half-ass anything, and I jumped into it and came over to Japan for uni. I did kendo and judo. It just so happened that the main instructor, where I was, also trained with the Japan Self-Defense Force and the police. And so he took a liking to me. After about a year, for about a year I was with him there at uni, and I ended up moving in and becoming an uchi deshi, which is a live-in student. And he's kind of like my father here in Japan, to be honest. I still talk. In fact, I just talked to him this Sunday, and we still stay in touch. He's in the northern part of Japan, or where's the southern part of the main island. So, anyway, I did that and graduated from uni, and then ended up moving to Osaka, ended up working for a martial arts complex. And it's a shrine. It's actually a shrine with a very large martial arts complex. And I worked there for 8 years. It opened up a lot of opportunities for me to continue studying, not just judo and kendo, but a lot of different martial arts. And I just continued with it, competed my ass off in judo. I mean, like, that was my thing. I mean, that was like judo. But cool thing was, learning how to take people down. Also had to figure out how to keep myself going. And that's when I really got into fitness and learning more about my body. And so it just I ended up training people, not in judo necessarily, but actually judo players, kids especially. I did yoga for a long time. Got into that, and it just, anyway, ended up, here I am, 20 years later.
What was the original process of moving to Japan? That must have been quite a culture shock.
That was bonkers, man. I mean, a kid from Kansas, and I had a little bit of language under my belt, but I'm talking little. But it's always like when you're young, a little bit Japanese, it's going to be totally fine. And come over to Japan, I was like, I don't know shit. And it was good, man. And but it was complete culture shock. Just completely, I don't know. I just jumped into it though. I knew that if I wanted to learn, if I really wanted to just have the full experience, then I needed to do it, and I did. I just jumped in. I've always been like that in my life. I mean, it's both good and bad, I guess. But I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I just kept going. And I'm very stubborn. I think that's what I tell my students right now. I tell my students, I'm like, no matter what, just step on the mat. And I learned that from my martial art instructor. No matter what kind of day you're having, at least step on the mat, do the warm up, go. And that's just kind of how it's always been. Because there's times where I was so scared. I would go visit a new dojo, a new training hall, and it was like that moment, like you have that opportunity. Am I going to go in, or am I going to puss out and go, drink a beer or something? And luckily, I always at least walked in, and then I got my ass kicked, so it was good.
What was your training like before you started martial arts?
So yeah, it's gymnastics. That was my thing. I tried when I was very young. I tried baseball. I remember trying basketball, and that lasted maybe a month. And I was always a little guy. Did gymnastics, and I just loved it. The thing, though, I think that really drew me into gymnastics was not just the fact of it taught me how to move my body, and it taught me how to do things. Anything I really wanted to do, it prepared me for that. It was my coach, and my coach, Mark Folger. I'm still friends with him. He's still a mentor of mine, and I think that if there's listeners out there. Doesn't matter what you do. If you had a good coach, or maybe like we all remember a teacher from school that really, really stuck with us and inspired us. Mark was that to me. And he really kept me wanting to be in gymnastics and learning. And as a matter of fact, I go back to a lot of the things that he taught me, and I use that in my trainer course for my GMB trainers, some of the ways of teaching and motivating.
So what makes a good teacher?
A person who actually listens. And it's not necessarily just giving your student what they want, but what they need. And it's tough. And sometimes that doesn't mean more stuff. Sometimes it means having them back off. It means maybe looking at their personal life. And it can get messy, you know what I mean? But the thing is if you really want to be a good coach, it's not about dictating. It's about really listening to what your client, your athlete needs and getting that to them. Motivation, of course, I mean, really, if we're talking about athletes, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, athletes sometimes want to be there. If you look at, though, the kind of people that I work with right now, I'm not talking about my GMB trainers. I'm talking about the people that come to us in GMB. They're like me now. I used to be an athlete. I'm not an athlete anymore at all. I still do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I still train my ass off every single day, but I'm not an athlete. I'm a father. And I have a responsibility to my kids to make sure my wife that I can take care of them. But the thing is I want to be able to do this kind of stuff as long as I can. I want to play with my kids' kids. You know what I mean? And so I do know, though, as a coach, that the people that I work with, they don't need to do things where it forces them to end up puking, or we've got enough freaking stress in our life that if we dread our workouts, then it's not going to help. So, process to follow to continue to do what they want to do.
Sorry, man, I missed that last bit.
Sure. So, giving them a process to follow that's going to allow them to be able to do the things that they want to do.
Yeah, perfect. So how did you find competing in gymnastics at an early age?
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it, actually. I remember going when I was doing baseball. And when I did baseball, like they had like the competitions and stuff. I really didn't enjoy those at all. But gymnastics, I really liked. And I think the big thing was it was like it's me. It wasn't like me competing against other people, and it wasn't also having to depend upon other people. And it's kind of me. I'm a very independent kind of guy, but I just really loved training for things, the training was always the biggest thing for me. And the competition was kind of just icing on the cake, I guess. So especially in Kansas at that time, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, basically the Midwest, huge gymnastics. Men's teams were just, it was really like big time stuff. And I'm talking like at the university level, things like that. Now, not so much, I don't even know. But like back then, that's how it was. But when I was in primary school, elementary school, there were big teams of men's gymnastics. And it was fun because I got to travel on the weekends, go to Texas and Nebraska and Oklahoma, all over. And I remember just going to these huge meets and getting to meet these other guys and being really inspired by watching these other guys my age just kicking ass. And it was fun. It was just a lot of fun for me at that time.
You sound like someone who is a good athlete in as much as you enjoy the training process. You throw yourself into it. Why do you reckon that is?
You know what? I've had so many people ask me this, and I meditate a lot, by the way. Coming to Japan over the past 20 years, meditation is a big thing I got into, is in meditation. I think that in my terms that was kind of my out. Yes, I could have devoted a lot more time to my schooling, learning more about maybe if I wanted to become an architect or I don't even know. My main thing was that at a very young age, when I started like gymnastics, I realized that I was pretty damn good at it, and not in a cocky way. It was like, this is something that I can do, and I can do it well. And I realized that. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and it's just always been that way for me. And so I'm not talking like natural talent. I'm just talking like I enjoy doing the work. And, I was never in the military or anything like that, but I remember being in high school and seeing like Navy SEALs. That was like when the talk, like the movies, Navy SEAL or something, and looking at basic training and being like, that looks fun. That's what I thought. A lot of people are like, that looks like hell. I'm like, nah, I would I'd love to do that, And, like when I came to Japan, it was the same deal. It was just like, okay, here's this white boy from Kansas, and I was with the police and, the self-defense force, and they were just kicking my ass. And it was like, I don't know, maybe I'm a little weird, but I kind of liked it. And I got hurt a lot, and it was really tough and mentally extremely challenging, but it was just like I didn't die, and I just kept going, and I was good at it. So I think it takes a little bit of a freaking weirdo to kind of enjoy that sort of stuff. And I don't think it's for everybody, but I do think that we all have something that we really love to do. And a big part of that is because we're actually good at it. And I just realized from a very young age, moving my body and doing this kind of stuff is something I not only enjoy, but it's something I'm pretty good at. And I stuck with it. And I think that's a big thing too, is sticking with it.
Yeah. Was there anyone in your early life who displayed those qualities, or is it something you picked up yourself?
You know what? At that time, again, there were like guys that I looked at and were like, these guys are really good or whatnot. But I do remember, because of my gymnastic background at that particular time, especially the 1984 Olympics, which was held in Los Angeles, and remembering that team, Tim Daggett, Bart Connor, a lot of the guys who were on that team, I just thought these guys are amazing. And it was the way they moved, and it was just like, that's what I want. Of course, that's partly because I was doing gymnastics at that time, but I really remember that. And so those are some guys I looked up to. Some earlier people, for example, like Kurt Thomas. He's very famous for doing like a V-sit press to hand, and also Thomas Flares on the pommel horse. But that was that. And then, of course, looking at the martial arts, like movement has always been something that I liked. Bruce Lee, yeah, everybody knows him. I think he's cool. But like people around me, though, who were doing martial arts, things like that, it wasn't necessarily those people so much as me looking for people that I could learn from. And so that's what always drove me. I'm always looking to learn. And it's still now. I'm still looking for like coaches and people that I can learn from. So I just want to continue doing that my whole life.
You mentioned a while ago meditation and Zen meditation.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does that practice look like for you, and how did you kind of find it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is a huge part of my life, especially right now. We were talking about this a little earlier, about 2.5 months ago. Skateboarding, messing around on a half pipe. I fell and I broke my ankle, and so I had surgery, and I have a plate now in my right ankle with 8 screws in there. I haven't
Nice.
been able to do a lot, but I meditated a lot during that time because I was in a hospital. I was in hospital for a pretty short time, actually, considering like what happened. I was in there for 14 days. Didn't have shit to do, man. It wasn't like I was going to be banging out chin-ups or anything like that. So meditated a lot. And to kind of go back to where I started with meditation was when I first came to Japan because of my martial art. And so in Kendo, they always start with meditation. At the time, I also had to do Iaido. So Iaido and Kendo is kind of like, at least where I studied, was you do it together. But my instructor was also pretty big into the Zen part of everything. And so that's what got me into it. I also got into, like I mentioned earlier, yoga. So I was doing meditation there. During those times, so I would go to actually a Japanese temple, the Buddhist temples, and I would meditate, meet with the monks there, and they would take you through and you would do it. Now it's very different. Over the past year, I've actually been using a program called Headspace. Not sure if you're familiar with it. Wonderful, wonderful program. I highly recommend it. There's also some other wonderful meditation apps out there. I think what I like about that recently is that for all of the meditation that I've done, again, I'm always looking to learn something new. And someone suggested this to me, and it just kind of clicked. As a matter of fact, recently they came out with a sport pack. So within their Headspace, they look at like training, focus, competition for sport, and take you through daily meditations for that. I also meditate. So I meditate twice a day. Right now, this is my current thing. So what I'll do is in the morning, I'll do my Headspace. And then during the afternoon, after my workouts, because I typically do my conditioning in the afternoons, after that, I will sit and reflect. And so this is something that I'll do. And I'll give myself a question. And so that might be like, today I haven't gone through it, but I need to look at my notebook. But anyway, like for example, a big thing I like to do is why. Why did I actually choose to do something that day? And then I'll just use that question and reflect on it. So it's more of, it's similar to some of the Zen, not koans or anything like that, but where I was taken through that my meditation instructor took me through before. And so asking me certain questions for particular periods of my life. And so like when I injured my ankle, I went through a lot of that. Not like, oh, why did I break my ankle or anything like that, but like actually looking at other things like, why was I really wanting to get into skateboarding? Because it was the first time in my life I'd ever done skateboarding. Here I am 44 right now, but it's because my birthday was a couple weeks ago. But, 40, why is a 43-year-old guy want to do skateboarding, Because it freaking looks cool, man. But no, there was some, underlying reasons behind that, and meditated about it. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And a lot of big things came out of that, and it was a great learning experience. So a lot of people are like, dude, you broke your freaking ankle, man. How can that be good? And I'm like, I study a lot about Stoicism. I really like that. Also, my favorite book, by the way, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. If you haven't read it, I really suggest it. He also has another book, Ego is the Enemy. Great book. But for me, that's important, is to really learn more about yourself, not physically, but also mentally. And so spending time looking at that and always realizing that out of every bad situation, you can learn something good. And I did. I learned a lot from this ankle break. And instead of trying to be positive all the time, I just try not to be negative. Mm-hmm. And this is something I tell my trainers all the time, that being positive all the time is exhausting. But if you can keep yourself from being negative, then hey, that's a good thing, and definitely something that you can continue doing.
Yeah. How do you go about applying stoicism in your day-to-day life?
Oh yeah, one thing is when I wake up in the morning is that it's so speaking of books, Ryan Holiday also has another book out right now, and it's The Daily Stoic. I can't remember the title of it. I apologize.
365 or something like that. 365.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah, something. What is it? Yeah.
It should be arriving today. I'm waiting for it to arrive.
Yeah, so it was a gift. So I just got it last week. And one of my trainers gave it to me for my birthday, and I've actually got it in my toilet. And so every morning, drink a glass of water, wake up, I stretch my ankle, I drink a glass of water, and then it's toilet time for me. I'm like an old man, right? I'm just 6:03, ready to go. But I start off my day now going through one of those passages in the book, and then I think about how it relates to me. And so that is something that I've been doing. And so that way I'm trying to set myself up for success each day by reflecting. And so I have 2 kids, 9-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son. And I want to do things. I want to make sure that I set my day up for success, like I said, but I also want to make sure that I spend time with them and not get sucked in to some of the craziness that can happen in the morning getting kids ready for school, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know if you have kids, but shit can get crazy. So making sure that I go through and read that passage, then it allows me to handle things in a good way if something happens. So instead of just going in and being like, what the, and freaking out about it, I'm just like, all right, okay, we can handle this. And so similar to the ankle, when it happened, it's kind of like shit happens, move on, And so that's what I'm trying to do with my life right now. So it's tough. I mean, until I die, I'm sure I'm going to be, still dealing with it. But the thing is, I'm trying. And so trying to set myself up each day to be successful for that.
Exactly. Do you have a journaling practice or anything like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Something I also like is the 5-minute journal. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I've got mine right next to me right now.
Yeah, man, that's a great one. But I'm also really big into just writing my thoughts down. So whatever it be, this is something that my business partner, I've got 2 business partners, 3 of us started GMB together. But Andy, I know he journals a lot as well. Jarlo does too, of course. But Andy and I talk about journaling a lot, and always carry a moleskin with us and wherever we go. And I got into the habit actually when I first came to Japan of carrying a notebook, not to journal my thoughts, but actually for my Japanese. And so anytime I heard like a word I didn't know, or I saw a particular character written on a billboard that I didn't know, I'd write it down and then I'd look it up later. And I love to learn, obviously, and it's like that was the way to do it. I still do that with like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today. I started back Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after my accident, and we went back to just some of the basic stuff. But the thing is, it's like new stuff came up, right? Because it's like you can never do the basics enough. And so right afterwards, I'd write that down. But my journal, I've got those 2, the 5-minute journal, and then I've also got a journal where I just write random shit. And then I'll go back to it and reference that later.
Nice. I'd love to really dig into that and watch your journaling practice, but I think it's time to kind of move on to the kind of technical side of things. And
yeah, man.
Have you ever played around with breath control?
Oh, absolutely, man. Breathing, so important. It's funny you mention that because this is something, my injury too, that something I could do while I was in bed. And so I went back to looking at everything from my old yoga practices to things that I learned in martial art to working with one of my good friends, Vic from MoveNat. I was in Thailand with him for a couple weeks, and we were doing a lot of free diving. He was helping me working on holding my breath and apnea, the whole scheme of that. Right now, what I'm really focusing on, actually is got a little bit of allergies going on. And so I'm using my breath work to try and help with that instead of using medication for that. But then also now that I'm getting back into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, hopefully heavily, making sure that I'm focusing on the breath in order to stay relaxed no matter what position I'm put in. And so I think this is the extremely important with anything you do. With my movement practice, if you will, my practice, I don't like call it exercise, but even if I'm doing handstands, if I'm doing ring work, if I'm doing locomotion, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, always focusing on that breath and making sure first and foremost that I am breathing. And then I also listen to the breath to gauge where I am in that particular point in my practice. And so I think like as beginners, it's tough because beginners brace and hold their breath. But once you can get past the point of that initial learning period of a particular movement, then I think the next thing is to focus on the breath in order to make sure that you're focusing on ease of movement and quality of movement. And that's really big for me.
So when you
be all excited with these questions. So.
Good. When you think of good movement, who's the first person that comes to mind?
You know, interestingly enough, is a baseball player named Ichiro. And I mean, he's popular enough that most people in the world, even if you don't follow baseball, know. I don't follow baseball. I just know him. He's actually from an area where I live here in Japan. The reason that I say that is because he is a very small player. He's over in the U.S. He's been there forever now, but looking at his size and looking at how he is so efficient with his movement because he has to play with these big boys, I just remember that, and I just thought it was wonderful. And again, I'm not a baseball player, but it's just movement, looking at him move and the way he uses his body, and when he's in the outfield and he's warming up, just watching what he does it's all for him. And you can tell that the movements that he's using, the warm-up that he's using, are looking at what's going to make him a better player and able to use his body more efficiently. And I think that if we can all focus on that, what's good for you, not just what some guru out there tells you that you should be working on, but really what is good for you. I think that's important. And really getting back to the key point in GMB, and that is physical autonomy. Being able to use your body the way you want to be able to do the things you want to do. And it's about efficiency and being smooth with your body and having a full understanding of where you currently are in your body, and also having a path to get you to where you want to go. So lots of different people I could talk to. I mean, if you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course, the majority of everybody's going to say Rickson Gracie, right? You know, he's like pinnacle of everybody wants to move like Rickson. I mean, if you look at, swimming, my daughter's really into swimming. And so there's a lot of different swimmers, especially because the Olympics just happened, Michael Phelps, but there's some other people that if you really look at this, they're beautiful in the water. And I think that's what separates people, from being good and great. And that is whenever they do something, you look at them and you know that they're good simply because their movements are just
absolutely
so beautiful. And they really know how to move their body. That to me is just pure physical autonomy.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm asked what good movement is, you can kind of tell, can't you? Like, I think everyone has this inherent understanding of what good movement is.
Absolutely. Yeah,
in terms of physical autonomy, I've been kind of playing around with this idea that I think we naturally have it, and it gets covered up with life. And kind of hidden away. Do you how do you go around or about uncovering it?
Again, this is a tough one because I think we get in the way of what we could be doing. Life gets in the way, I think if a lot of us would really step back and get rid of the ego and honestly look at where we currently are. We make an assessment. So in GMB, we have the AAA framework, which is you assess, you address, and then you apply. And if you truly, truly learn where you currently are physically and mentally in your body, then you can learn to gain that physical autonomy. But the thing is like I said earlier, is you have to step on the mat. And I think a lot of people just go through the motions. And so that's also why it's not just about doing something, it's about doing it mindfully. And this is also something that we're very, very, very into in GMB, and that is not just doing exercise for the sake of exercise, but always having a why. And when you do it, when you do that particular movement, whatever you're doing for that why, is to be fully in that movement. So this is a very Zen kind of thing, being in the moment. There is only now. Right now, I'm only talking to you, and what just happened is gone. What's going to happen, I shouldn't even be thinking about. It's when I'm performing a movement, how beautifully am I doing this? And I like to say, I don't care about repetitions, because I don't. I only care about you doing one repetition as beautifully as you can and then do it again. And so physical autonomy, I really believe it's just taking those small steps, but being very, very mindful of each of those steps as you do it.
That's beautiful. I really like that idea. That's incredible.
Thank you very much.
Talking about swimming as well, it's just it is a kind of a beautiful thing to watch, and you watch someone get slippery through the water. And it's amazing. It's a really, really cool thing. I've been reading through, and I'd like you to kind of explain the 3 attributes of physical autonomy, what makes it up.
Well, sure. So we break things, we kind of like threes in GMB. I think it just kind of like happened to be this way. If you look at 3, so yeah, the power of 3, We look at strength, we look at flexibility, we look at control. And so if you want to break those down, really, you can apply this to anything. This isn't just GMB. And so here's the thing I need to explain about GMB. We're not a fitness company. A lot of people will look at it and they'll be like, oh, they do gymnastic type of things and stuff. Yes, okay, we use those movements as a way to educate people about the concepts. So we're an education company. And so, Andy, myself, and Jarlo, we're fathers, but we're also teachers. And I think that is the big thing that separates us from a lot of different places out there, is we use our experience in Jarlo's physical therapy practice, Andy having taught so many people, over the years in education, and my background as well as teaching. And so we look at things and we look at these concepts. And if you look at physical autonomy and you break things down, and you can break it into 3 parts, and you have that strength, that flexibility, and that motor control. Just call it control. Now, the thing is, you can always focus on one of those things with anything you do. And so let's say we're just looking at a squat, a basic squat. And I'm not even talking the exercise kind of squat. I'm saying like squatting down to sit on the floor. Now, if you break these up into strength, flexibility, and control, and you really look at what you need to work on, there's always going to be something that you can improve. And there's always going to be something that's better than the other. And so this isn't something that you just mash together and try and work on your strength, flexibility, and motor control at the same time. That you can take it apart and you can look at what's limiting you. And that's what we're about. And that's where the assessment comes in. And so when I talk about assessing where you are, this is also on a daily basis. And so we like to use, once again, 3 movements: the bear, the monkey, and the frogger. And I'm just going to talk about the bear, but using the bear, and every single day, just using it as a very quick assessment to go through and look at your body and see where you are that day. How's your strength feel that day? How's your flexibility? You might be really, really tight. Or how about your control? Maybe you're not moving as well as you did the day before. Now, a lot of things could be because of that. For example, maybe the day before you did some very heavy barbell squats. And, you've got some serious DOMs going on, Or it simply could be because you were up last night with your daughter who had a fever and she was sick, so you had to take care of your daughter so you didn't get a lot of sleep. So you're very lethargic today and not feeling quite like you are. And so by looking at the strength, flexibility, motor control, assessing yourself each day, and then also using the next concept, which is autoregulation, which instead of deciding that, okay, today is going to be my high day, next day is going to be low, then it's going to be medium intensity kind of day. Instead of doing that, you look at where you are that day. And so a good buddy of mine, martial artist named Joe Wilson, I remember that he said he would go to his martial arts instructor, and he was kind of tired that day, and he would say, what's the workout going to be like today? Is it going to be pretty tough? And the instructor would always say, it's only as tough as you make it. But the thing is what I hear is that you're using autoregulation. So basically, it's just very easy. Other people don't determine how you're going to work out that day. And so once again, let's say, you're up all night with your daughter and blah, 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 and you're feeling like crap that day. Okay, at least show up, step on the mat, warm up, see how your body's doing, and then go from there. Because the thing is our mind can get in the way of what we really can do. And this isn't about, working through the pain and crushing it, nailing it. That's not where I am in my life right now. The people who are doing GMB and the people that I want to help, those aren't the people, we're not about that. I love CrossFit to death, but we are not CrossFit. We don't use puke buckets, and it's all up to you. You know what I mean? What I am getting at, though, is if we truly listen to our bodies, and if we can assess our bodies on a daily basis, then we can always have a good workout. And it doesn't matter necessarily if that workout was crushing it or nailing it. If you're mindful in the movements that you're doing, you're always going to be learning. That means you're always going to be improving. The reason why is in GMB, we're about being able to do this for our entire life. It's not about nailing some skill within the next month. It's the process and making sure that we're listening to our bodies using this AAA framework of assessing where we're at by looking at our strength, our flexibility, and our motor control on a daily basis, and then using autoregulation in order to determine how we're going to be working out that day so that we can enjoy the process, see good results, and continue doing this for the rest of our life.
So I think a lot of people will or hopefully people will be realizing that it isn't just enough to look at some rings and think I'm going to do a muscle up, and the objective is to get myself from hanging from the rings to suspended above it, and I'm going to do it any way, shape or form. So
absolutely,
how do you approach that in terms of nulling the ego?
Yeah, and it's that ego thing, and it comes back to this. And the way that we're able to do this is by giving people a process and using progressions and setting them up for small successes along the way. And so like I mentioned earlier, I wake up in the morning and I have a sort of a routine I go through. And, drink my water, stretch, go into the toilet, do my business, but while I'm doing it, I'll read that book. But also understanding that shit happens, and when there are days when it doesn't go to plan, it's okay. It's okay to take a day off. It's okay if you don't crush it that day. It's okay if you can't get that handstand that day. You're not a bad person. And in GMB, that's what we do. It's the support system is extremely important. And the thing is, if you can surround yourself with people that are like-minded, then you can do great stuff. But again, making sure that ego doesn't get in the way. And I want to be clear here that in GMB, we work hard. I mean, you can kick ass in this. I'm not saying, oh, it's okay. You don't need to work out if you don't want to work out. I mean, if you don't want to, great, okay? But like me, I work out every freaking day. I hit it hard. And, my GMB trainers, I expect them to work out hard too. But thing is our why is a little bit different than the majority of our clients. And so all I'm trying to say, though, is understanding that why And having a solid why for why you want to do something is going to help you to continue doing it on those days when you don't want to do it. And so that's also why we have a really great community. We call it the Alpha Posse. And this is where all of our members, we get online and share what we're doing. And my GMB trainers give advice to them and help them out if they got a question. And again, it comes back down to, you always get the person who's like, I couldn't get my handstand today. What the F? I can't freaking believe it. And it's like, hey, dude, it's okay, man. Did anyone die? No? All right. It's cool. Life is going to go on. It's just a handstand, man. It's just a party trick. The world is not going to end. If you're not an athlete, if you're not getting paid to do this, it's a hobby. And so let's not stress out about it. It's going to be fine. And a lot of people out there might not want to hear that, but that's the truth. If you're not getting paid for doing this, it is a hobby, okay? So don't freak out over it. That's all I can say.
So, Ryan, I want to be super respectful of your time. Have you got another 15 minutes?
Dude, keep going. I hope it's okay if I keep talking. So.
Oh, 100% it is. So when we're kind of looking at movement quality, what are the big misconceptions behind the people's approach to movement?
You know what? I think at least what I see a lot of is people looking at something and thinking that they should be able to do it right away. And my favorite, this is sarcasm by the way, favorite question on YouTube is always, I watched the video once, I tried it, I can't do it, what am I doing wrong? Just keep trying it about 1,000 times and you'll get it. But I think it comes back down to the fact that a lot of us who are coming in and doing a lot of this stuff, at least in GMB, aren't 20-year-olds. Again, I'm 44 years old. I've been doing this my whole life. But I fully understand that the majority of people that come to us have not been doing it. As a matter of fact, there's probably a big period in their life where they haven't been exercising or doing anything at all. But the thing is maybe back in uni, they played sport. And they still have that mentality that they should be able to do something. And so, you look at people and they come back in and they're like, yeah, that's just a bear, or that's just a monkey, or he's just doing these animal kind of movements. It's easy. And they do it and they're like, holy shit, why can't I do this? And you know what? That's a good thing. And not being able to do something is actually great as long as you understand why you're not able to do it. And it comes back to assessing things. And so really, I think that's what we find is that people come in and try these movements or something like that and realize that shit ain't easy. And it can be frustrating. But we're not teaching just skills. I show off, some stupid shit, one-arm handstands or whatever, But the thing is, it's not about me. It's about that person and using the tools that we have for them. And that's what we want to do in GMB is give people these tools to use to be able to do whatever the hell they want to do. If you want to go do Zumba, awesome. Okay. I think that's great. But, if something starts getting weird and hurting or something, take a step back, figure out what's going on and either assess it yourself or find a coach that can help you to figure out what's going on. And so, so many things I could say about that, but again, it just really comes back to our, AAA framework of assessing, addressing, and applying, having a program that you can follow so that you can trust in the process. And then also focusing on that, understanding that you're going to have to work on your strength, your flexibility, and your control, and that every day is not going to be constant progress towards that goal. You're going to have ups and downs. And when you do, it's cool. You're not going to die. Trust in the process. Keep going.
So you mentioned the hand balancing. Why is that an important skill for people to develop?
Well, first and foremost, it's really cool if you can crank that out at a party and also looks good on Instagram. So that's kind of what it is Instagram, man. Just throw that arm out there, get that shot, and you're good to go. Yeah, it's a big joke that I always have to tell to all the CrossFitters. So hand balancing. Hand balancing to me, it takes you out of your comfort zone. It's also going to teach you spatial awareness. And as well, it's going to teach you focus. Not to mention, it's going to frustrate the shit out of you. And as long as you stick with it, then that one time you hold that handstand is going to change your life. And so I like to use surfing as an analogy. You know, I also love to surf. And one arm, when I was going through my one arm handstand practice trying to get that, it reminded me of surfing, because you never know what the ocean's going to be that day. That's your body. You know, you wake up and you got to paddle out there. You know, once you paddle out there, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to catch any waves. If you do happen to catch a wave, you get knocked off that wave and you're going to have to paddle right back out there. And so what that teaches you is that you have to be consistent, like continuously go out there, at least paddle out there, at least try to get that wave. You have to focus on getting that wave. But the thing is once you catch that one wave out of the 100 that you've been trying to catch, it's freaking awesome. And it makes it worthwhile. The one-arm handstand for me was the same way. You know, you've got to set up properly. You can't rush it. There is a process, you know, a checklist that you have to go through, making sure that your fingers are in the right place and slowly going through, making sure you don't throw the arm out there, but instead you keep the shoulder down, lift the elbow, extend the arm. Little things, these checklists that you need to go through. And if you try and rush through it, you're going to come tumbling down and you have to go right to the beginning. So I think that hand balancing is a good way to teach us more about ourselves. What kind of person really are you? And I see so many people and they get frustrated with the handstand, they kick up there, come down and they cuss and they, you know, get angry and everything like that. And again, it's kind of like, it's just a handstand, dude. But if you can let go, that's my big thing too, is just let go. Trust in that process, learn what it takes to get upside down and get into a good line, spend the time doing it. It's going to be worth it, because it's, you know, on a very, very deep level, it's going to make you a better human, not because you can do a handstand, okay, but because you've taken the time to learn more about yourself and learn patience. And I think that's a big one.
So if you had, this person may or may not be me, if you had
I know a guy
of taking someone from kind of a 5 to 10 second kind of shitty handstand to a minute of kind of good quality, like mostly controlled, and you had about 6 months to do it and you had $1 million online, what would you wish to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know why they want to do it. This is the thing. Do you really need a freaking 1 minute handstand?
Oh, absolutely not.
No. Okay, great. Then let's not even worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to actually play. And so this might blow a lot of people away. Like, as far as like everybody thinks that, you know, you just got to keep nailing, you just got to keep working on that straight line. You just got to keep going for time, work on stamina, hold it on the wall. You got to work bands, you got to do whatever. But the thing is, if you don't need that 1 minute handstand, okay? Instead, you just want to feel more comfortable on your hands. Then what I would suggest is playing with different ways of the handstand. Let's say if you've got 10 seconds, and so this is a requirement that I actually have all of my trainers. I want them to have a really, really solid 10-second straight line handstand and just nail that sucker. If they can do that, then it's time to play. Let's walk on our hands. Let's do handstand 180s. Let's try and stay up there. Let's try and put ourselves in different positions to force ourselves to work harder to get back into the handstand. Let's just basically train ourselves in multiple positions so that it doesn't matter where we are upside down, we're going to be solid. If you can do that, and then you can come back later, I think you'll realize you're going to be able to hold the handstand a hell of a whole lot longer. As long as you're, of course, working on line work. But, you know, a person paid me $1 million and they said that they wanted a 1 minute handstand. I mean, I would take it. I would be like, okay, I'm going to get you that 1 minute handstand. But again, I want to make sure that they actually have a good why for doing it and that they enjoy the process. And I would use certain protocols that would match them. And I think that's what's tough. And that's why it's tough for me to give you a stock answer. I could just tell you this many, seconds on the wall. And then you need to work on your bails. You need to work on straddle handstands. You need to work on core exercises, wrist strengthening, extremely important. Also make sure that you're working on opening up the shoulders. And that also means that you're probably going to be tight in the pecs, the lats. And so you're going to have to work on rolling those out. So many different things involved with it. But again, it comes back to your why. And right now where I am with my GMB trainers and the majority of people that I work with in handstands, we're not going to become circus performers. And the majority of the people aren't going to end up, wanting to use that to make money. So what I suggest for them is let's try and play and get really, really strong in any position. And that's going to carry over and make you stronger for the regular handstand. As long as you keep working on that a little bit too.
Perfect. That's given me loads to think about.
Cool, man. For your friend, you mean?
Yeah.
The guy
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We've mentioned a load of books. Is there a book you've gifted most to other people?
You know what? Something I do recommend is So Good They Can't Ignore You.
Yeah.
You familiar with that book?
Yes.
So just a little bit about this book for those of you who don't know about it. It's actually by the name is escaping me. Cal Newport. Cal Newport is the person who wrote this book. Now, it's talking about why skills. You should be focusing on skills. And so this originally was a Steve Martin thing. And so Steve Martin, his big thing as a comedian was he just wanted to be so good that no one could ignore him. And that's what he would say. And that's where you need to go. So you focus on your talent, your skill, and you just get really, really good at it. But it's not just about that, of course. I mean, you need to focus on what you need. But you also need to find mentors out there to help you so that you're on the right path. And so instead of inventing the wheel, look at people who have come before you. And there's actually, everyone knows sensei, in Japanese, you have bow to your sensei kind of thing. Sensei, the characters for sensei is actually, loose translation would be person who was born before. So sensei is saki, and saki is before, and sei is umareru or umu, which is to be born. So the person who is born before you. So simply, this is a person. Your sensei is simply a person who has more experience and has gone that path before you. So I don't consider myself a teacher so much as I want to be a leader, and I want to, as I climb up this mountain, I'm simply like on the path a little bit further than the person behind me, and I want to shine that flashlight down to that person to help make that path easier for them so that they can be very, very good. And so my big thing with my students and my clients is I want them all to be better than me. That's my goal in life. So all of my GMB trainers and everybody, I want to give them as much as I can. I'm an open book, man, and I want them to be so much better and to have a better life than I'm having, Same with my kids. But Cal Newport, though, I really think it's a great book. So Good They Can't Ignore You. Another book that I recommend from him is called Deep Work.
Oh, I've just finished it.
Dude, I love that book. And, every person can benefit from reading this. And this is what we do. In fact, in GMB, we encourage all of our employees. By the way, one of the benefits for working for us is free books. Any book you want on Kindle, we buy. That's cool. Every single one of our employees. We get them a Kindle, and any book they want, we buy it for them. And this is one book, though, that we pretty much require them to read is Deep Work. And the reason why is because that's how we work in GMB. There is a time where we step away and we say, okay, you're not going to hear from me today because what I'm going to do is lock myself away for X amount of time. And I'm going to focus on one single thing today without the internet, without my phone, without radio or anything, and just simply focus on how I can be better and how I can take this idea and expand upon it for not just the company, but we're always thinking about our clients. And so that's what we're really big into in GMB. So I think it also, comes back down to this mindfulness. And everything we do in GMB and everything in my life that I want to do, it's not just doing something, but it's how are you doing it? This is something I like about Japan. It's presentation. They don't just put a piece of sushi on a plate and give it to you. It's that plate. They think about what that particular cut of fish is and what plate it would look good on and that shape of the cut of that. And I mean, that's what we're after. That's mindfulness. I want to be more like that in my life. I want to think about even now, I don't think this is a very good interview in my sake because I'm rambling a lot. I'm not making it as beautiful as I could. But the thing is, always going to learn from it. And I want to take it further each and every time that I do it and deeper. And that's what it's about. So that deep work to me is about always looking inside internally and trying to learn from what you've done previously and make it better. So I think if we do that in not just our exercise, not just our fitness, if you will, not just in our movement practice, but in everything in our life, our business and how we talk with our wives and our husbands and our kids and things like that, I think we can all be better humans, really. And that's what we're after. Is one of the things in GMB is be a good person. Nice. And that's what we're trying to do.
Who's the first person you think of when you hear the word successful?
Wow, you know what? That's a tough question because there's so many people I look at that way. But to be honest, right now my dad. And the reason for this is because, yes, he's successful in his particular job that he's done. But a big part of it was that he rose to a high rank, like position in his job, but it got to be, it was taking over his life, and he actually stepped away. And he looked at what not only he needed, but what would be good for the family. Not just money, by the way, because he was never around because of this particular job that he was doing, and it was just wrecking. Basically, he would come home and he'd always be thinking about work and he'd be gone. So he stepped away, and now actually I'm pretty sure he's making a lot more money than he was, at that particular high position he was. But he actually stepped back and he was like, how can I be better at what I do and also for my family? And he did it. And that was huge to me. And so I really think he's very successful in my eyes, especially as a father, because we're really close now. And it's not that we weren't close before, but it was just like now he's always there no matter what. And he's more mindful of what's going on. And I just think that's super cool. I'm trying not to get teary-eyed here, but anyway, yeah, wow. Never really kind of thought about that like in that terms. But to me, I see him as being very successful in those terms because he's doing it for the family and also looking at what's good for him, because also that's important, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't take care of others.
Exactly. I think that's a great place to end the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.
Where can people find out a bit more about you and GMB?
Yeah, it's really easy. Just type in gmb.io. You can go to the Google or the YouTube. You can type in GMB Fitness, and that is our handle for everything. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram. Anywhere you type in GMB Fitness, you're going to see my ugly mug up there. And another thing too, I want to say, drop us an email, info@gmb.io. Any question you have will get answered by a real person. This is something that we're very, very, very big on, and that is support. Community is huge for us. A real person with a real answer will always answer, no matter what you ask them, even if you ask why I have such thick eyebrows, which is actually a question that
They're beautiful eyebrows.
yes. Well, I actually have to shave my entire face, but it's for another podcast. So,
right.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great. So,
I really enjoyed it, and I've got through about a third of the questions I want to ask you. I'd love to do a part 2 at some point, but thank you so much.
Let's do it, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast. Don't forget, you can get access to these shows before anyone else. You can watch them live, and you can even ask your questions directly to some of these awesome guests via me live, and I shall answer them before your very eyes. So if you want to support the show, head over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review, connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/alphamovementofficial, or you can find out more at alphamovement.co. And I shall see you soon for another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast.